Jeroen Coumou is a Dutchman living in Rotterdam. When we interviewed him to ask what golf means to him, his warm and approachable personality was immediately apparent, as was a thoughtfulness and a calm authority. Clearly at ease in being honest and open with strangers, he will at the same time fix you in the eye as he speaks and listens, learning a little about you in return. He has the characteristics which you would hope for among the best in his profession. Jeroen is a teacher.
I'm a history teacher. I teach history and social studies. My main concern is not the lesson I'm teaching. What I like about teaching is you see them come in as 12-year-olds and they leave as young adults, and you know they've made progress in life. If there's one or two which you can touch and reach and have a good influence on, I mean that's already a job well done.
He will let his students, kids from often very difficult family backgrounds in South Rotterdam, ask questions about the prosthetic on his left leg, and he will talk to the teenagers about the motorbike accident he had when he was their age. He respects their capacity to think for themselves and puts a lot of thought into how he communicates with them. He hopes his experience back then and all that he has learned about life since may help them. Jeroen tells us that losing his left leg at 17 led indirectly to a fantastic career he wouldn't change for the world, guiding young people forwards. He's a history teacher, always looking forward for his students. And at the end of a tough week teaching his classes, he says he changes one stressful situation for another. He goes to play golf. He's joking, of course, something which comes easily to him on the golf course. The day we spoke, he was easily identifiable in the orange shorts of the Netherlands. The team colours are crucial. And he was all smiles despite a fairly average scorecard. A golfer at ease with his disability then? Well, when we were first talking with him at the Ping Open for golfers with disability at Thonnock Park, Lincolnshire in June, Jeroen revealed that this wasn't always the case, but golf, he stresses, has provided a crucial part of his recovery story. It is a story for Jeroen that starts on a winter's night in 1983.
Actually, I just had my first girlfriend and we were like dating for 3 weeks, and I had dinner with my parents and left the house, and my birthday is the 20th of January, so the 22nd of January was of course a winter's night. I drove through this curve and I saw two cars coming from the opposite direction, and what happened was that the first car started to overtake the second car and it came on my side of the road, so I saw the headlights come towards me rapidly. I tried to avoid it, but of course I didn't succeed. So I got caught between my motorbike and the front of his car. So basically my left leg was fractured, smashed. The top of the left leg, it took skin and muscle out of the upper leg. It was broken also. And then because of the impact, I was sort of like launched like a rocket, about 5 to 10 meters. I ended up by the side of a ditch. You know, I landed unfortunately so that the ligaments were torn off the right knee. So then I was taken to hospital. They spent 10 hours operating on me. After that, I spent the first week lying in the intensive care. I lost a lot of blood. I had open wounds, so I was very vulnerable for infection.
Jeroen describes how he endured 7 months in hospital, undergoing a series of 11 operations. After trying to first save the foot, they tried to save the knee, but to no avail. The result was that he became an above-the-knee amputee. He recalls the doctors asked him if he needed psychiatric assistance as almost part of a general checklist. But the 17-year-old Jeroen didn't have a clue what he needed at that point, and he said no, thus allowing himself to enter his adulthood facing a mental hurdle he was simply unequipped to face. It had been a very different adventure up to that point, played out on the sweeping plains of Africa and the playing fields of England.
My childhood I spent living in Africa. I spent 5 years in Tanzania, 7 years in Kenya. My father always worked for sugarcane companies, so I had a wonderful childhood in Africa.
Jeroen remembers a real model, his teacher in Kenya, Mr. Richard Foster. He still recalls the lessons. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, he would say. And you can sense how Richard Foster may have guided Jeroen towards teaching history himself. When his father's work took him to a challenging area of the Sudan, Jeroen was sent to a boarding school, Dover College, in the south of England. Here he excelled in the classroom, but he was also a key member of the scrum in the rugby team and a wicket-keeper on the cricket pitch. One of his sporting heroes was Australian cricket fast bowler Dennis Lillee, while the rugby team he admires are the Springboks of South Africa, who won the Rugby World Cup of 1995 under the inspiration of Nelson Mandela. Jeroen remembers loving playing his rugby in front of the school crowd for Dover College. It had been a rich time for him then, but all interrupted.
I was a secondary school student, and of course, yes, the accident totally turns your world around. You really have to look at what can you do and what do you want to achieve in life, and because a lot of possibilities you don't have anymore. A lot of doors get smashed in your face, closed, and of course it takes a long while, especially when you're young, to accept the fact that you have a disability and get to deal with it.
The tough life lesson certainly offers Jeroen a feeling of perspective when addressing a class at school.
What I tell my students is that when you see somebody lying on the street, whether not feeling well or had an accident or whatever, it's not always about the individual. It has a large impact on also everybody around him. I mean, my father was into a new job. Of course, as a mother, you're always taking care of your children, and you want them to be well and protect them. Yeah. You have a brother and a sister who get much less attention because all the energy and all the attention is focused on you at the moment. So it has huge impact on families as a whole, and of course on you as an individual also. So yes, it does affect you, but I think in the long run it also makes you into who you are as a human being and where you stand in life. I think in the long run it changes you, it changes the way you look at life. It changes the way you deal with other people, and eventually became a school teacher. So I've been teaching children. They come in when they're 12, 13 years old. They leave when they're 16, 17, 18 years old. And I know I've always been a big influence on them, but I always have respect for the children. I tell them, about my accident, what happened to me. There are always children who remain seated after the lesson, and they have their own stories. Yeah. And basically, I think, as human beings, we all carry our cross. And I tell the children at the end of the lesson that, in my case, I have a disability which is visual. You can see that, if I wear short trousers, that I miss a leg. But in a lot of cases, you can't see what somebody's dealing with, so, you just make it clear that, just try and understand other people and don't judge too quickly. You've never walked in issues, so don't be too quick to judge. And so I think those are lessons which I have learned eventually through the years. And of course, I live in Rotterdam. I teach in Rotterdam South. My pupils a lot of them are from a tough background. So, they're like 2-3 behind in society, with parents being unemployed or alcoholism or poverty, and there's a lot of hidden poverty in Rotterdam, and so yes, you really hope for the children that they become the best, they do their best. Yeah, not everybody has equal chances in life, and so I've always sort of been devoted to trying and helping children who are from lesser backgrounds and sort of hoping they'll be on track.
Patient aftercare following trauma was very different in hospital in 1983. While Jeroen would find his true calling as a much valued teacher, the lack of psychological insight from doctors at the time was surely going to return to haunt him.
It's basically, what happens with people who are traumatized, and you try to you put a lid on it.
Yeah.
But the lid will never stay on permanently. So there's going to be a moment in life when the lid is just going to fly off, and that can be, for me, actually, that was the first time when I was 30, I became a father, and my firstborn. Well, I have two daughters, but when I heard it was a girl, I just thank God. I thought, God, I don't have to play football with her. Just that thought alone. But that was the first time that I actually did get depressed, and that I actually went to seek the help, which I didn't get at a 17-year-old age, because I refused help. So I did look for help at a later point in time, because I think a trauma is, you just can't keep the lid on forever. It's going to fly off sometime.
Therapy and support helped Jeroen, and his increasing expertise as a teacher made a major difference. But it was a new sport, golf, that would also offer him a significant boost going forwards. Drawn into the game by his then parents-in-law, he was coached by respected Ladies European Tour player Liz Weimer, winner of the 1994 Dutch Ladies Open, before his epiphany came at his first big golf event in South Africa in 2004.
I think probably from the moment I lost my leg up until the time I entered disabled golf, I would have difficulty with being next to another disabled person who would, let's say, also miss a leg. If you would put me in a room with another leg amputee, I would freak out. I would not feel comfortable, and I would want to leave. But what happened in South Africa was like, I think there were about 120 competitors. It wasn't only disabled, it was also the deaf, the blind, playing their categories. But the humor, the camaraderie. For me, it was the first time seeing so many people with the same disability that I have. I loved the South African tournament. That was what really got me hooked on golf, and just wanting to play the disabled golf tournaments. Golf is a very wonderful sport because you can play it with your able-bodied people, and you can play it in your disabled community. So basically you get the best of both worlds.
Jeroen is not the first golfer with a disability to talk about how playing in Edgar events has accelerated the feeling of coming to terms with emotions and feelings of being different from others.
What it also did is it does give me an identity. And once you find out that, being disabled, missing a leg, people looking at you, because you have to get used to also people looking at you and how to deal with that. And, people make remarks. Most of them are very polite. Some are simply rude and impolite. But eventually, through all the years, it does make you stronger. And I realized that, me as a leg amputee, missing my leg has given me also an identity which I can turn into something positive. And also disabled golf has given me a lot of opportunities.
Jeroen has also been inspired, something he understands as a teacher, that is important for all of us. He clearly remembers before his accident watching the Terry Fox story on TV about the 22-year-old athlete who lost his leg to cancer and embarked on an epic east to west cross-Canada run to raise millions for cancer research. When Jeroen lost his own leg, one of his friends from Africa, John Hudson, gave him a book written by Laddie Lucas, a fighter pilot in the RAF who played in the Open and the Walker Cup. Laddie wrote a biography of Sir Douglas Bader called Flying Colours, a golfer himself who lost both of his legs in a flying accident before serving the RAF with immense courage and bravery during the Second World War. Jeroen believes that times have changed a lot since he lost his leg in 1983. Many things, which were not seen as normal or accepted, are now accepted. He says he is sure there is still much work to be done and progress to be made. Concerning golf for the disabled, Jeroen writes, Edgar has moved mountains and done a good job promoting this beautiful sport for players with a disability. For this student and teacher of history, golf, for Jeroen, isn't about being desperate to win medals and cups when he plays. He certainly puts enjoyment and a good conversation at a premium and believes that golf should be a positive force for good.
Well, for myself personally, I think, being out on the golf course is a lot like living life. Good shots, bad shots are like good days, bad days. If you play a bad round of golf, how are you going to deal with that? How are you dealing with your temper? What is your behavior? Are you going to throw your clubs away? Are you going to swear to somebody? Are you going to put the blame on something or somebody else while you're the one playing bad golf? And that's what I learned from golf is, no, you're responsible for your actions. And what I learned is, I always say to myself, a bad shot doesn't make a bad hole, and a bad hole doesn't make a bad round of golf. And if it does, there's always tomorrow. Deal with it. So I don't get angry at myself. I would never throw with my clubs or kick a duck or whatever. I would just... I would never swear or get into an argument with anybody else. Although I can get irritated by other people's behaviour in the golf course. Even when you're in a flight with people who cannot behave themselves, who do not have control of their temper, it puts you off. It's very egoistic. I mean, you're playing with other people, and if you're having a bad day, don't make me have one. So. Yes, I think what I learned from golf is that it's actually quite a lot like, living life.
2 days after speaking with Jeroen, he travelled back to Rotterdam. On entering the building to reach his apartment, weighed down by his golf gear and luggage, he tripped and fell. Unable to break his fall, he heard the bone in his left stump break. Knowing something was seriously wrong, he rang an ambulance. Since then, despite having to go through more than 3 months of rehabilitation, he could still raise a smile, joking with us that he went from wearing the orange shorts of Holland on the last day of the ping tournament to wearing an orange cast on his leg 24 hours later, while he waited for a new prosthetic to be made. This was another test for Jeroen Coumou. Despite the humour, this teacher of young people has always been a studious thinker, and his view of working through problems, encouraging yourself through the struggle, may help others. In an email, just recently, he writes, "Building of character is a project without an end. We need good examples to make the story understandable. If we choose right, we can stand on the shoulders of giants." From Dennis Lilly to Richard Foster, from the Springboks to the All Blacks and their haka, from Tiger Woods to Edgar golfers Manuel de los Santos, Mike Brown and Juan Postigo. As Mandela said, it is the character of growth that we should learn from both pleasant and unpleasant experiences, and it always seems impossible until it's done. Also from Mandela. Despite the injury, Jeroen made sure he travelled to support his friends in the regional golf tournament for players with disability that he usually plays in. It took place in Holland, while his next mission is to get used to the new prosthetic leg with the aim of getting back out onto the putting green and then practice range in October. He's already registered for Edgar tournaments in 2023. Watching his friends play, he says, he got another sniff of the good stuff he has missed out on in the second half of the season. He writes, "Then I will start the back nine of my life properly," and he will do so to the tune of Back Nine by the much respected keyboardist Ben Sidran. Sidran sings, "Life ain't nothing but fine on the back nine." He is surely right, and however you make this happen, you just need to get there.